And we're back. This lesson, it's going to still be all around text, but this time I'm going to be teaching you all about the pen tool, paths, direct selection tool, blend modes, and some effects. We're going to be going all over the place with this one, and there's a whole bunch of tips as well that you're going to learn. So let's go ahead and get started with the pen tool. Now, so far I've talked earlier about a point text versus area text, but what if I want area to fit a specific shape? So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape out of that. We're going to go ahead and go to the pen tool, and I'm going to go to this other image that I've created. It's the banana image. Hit Command 0 so we can see everything. Now the pen tool, if I click on this tool, we see here that I get a bunch of different options. I've got pen tool, free transform, add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert. We are going to be using all of these. However, we're going to just be using the pen tool and the add anchor point tools today. But this is literally the bread and butter of Illustrator, and it's coming over here into Photoshop as well. So let's go ahead and start our pen tool. Now I want that text, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, to align along the edge of this banana. So there's no reason for these two objects of text to be together, but that's okay. I'm going to go to my text tool, go ahead and click 4 times, and that will select all of the text inside the text box. Copy it so it's on my clipboard. Come back to this other image. Now we're going to go back to my pen tool. Now the pen tool works very, very similar to other pen tools in, say, Keynote or Pages or Illustrator if you've ever gotten a chance to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my first click right here. Let's see. Oh, there's something weird going on here. As always, don't panic. Just let Photoshop do what it wants to do. My layers weren't on, so I just went ahead and dragged it away. Now I'm going to hold the Shift button and click again. I want it to kind of align with the end of this stem. Shift button again, and what this is doing is no matter where my click is, it's making a straight line. Now here's where things start to get a little bit different. As I click this time, I'm going to start to pull out, and I'm pulling with the angle of the fruit. And we'll click one more time. Notice what's happening right here. My cursor gets a little circle next to it as I get close. I go ahead and click on that, and now I've created a working path for the object to align with the banana. So let's look at what this path looks like. Photoshop treats paths as a ghost, so it's a non-printable entity. And if I come over to path, I've got a brand new little work path in here. Now paths are really there for anything you want to do with them. So if I click down here, I can turn this path into a selection. I can turn it back into a work path if I want to with these 2 buttons. I can stroke this path. I can fill the path. There's options down here. Just immediately take the shape that I've just created and turn it into an opaque object. But this is a vector shape, so it is a path that's determined by mathematics and not determined by pixels. So it doesn't matter how big or how small your image is for the path. The path sits separately. So let's go back to layers here. Now I want to go ahead and copy that text that I just created into this path. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my text tool. And notice what happens. Again, if I was to click here, I would make point text. As I move my cursor into the path, it changes shape. So first and foremost, if I'm on the path, it gives me the text on a path icon. If I'm in the path, it gives me a text inside a path icon. And that's what these little I-beams are doing. So I have text in a path, text on a path, and then just point text. So I want to go ahead and click in here and hit Command V. And that pastes the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog several times, and that's fine. What I'd like to do though is I'd like to resize this so it's a little bit bigger. So of course I'm going to hit Command A and then Command Shift. This time I'm going to hit the period because I want to make it bigger. There we are, that's pretty good. And now if I want to align it, I can center align it or left align it, which makes more sense so that it goes with the curvature of the banana. And we're set. So I simply hit Command Enter, and that goes ahead and it moves the path, or it moves the text so that I can do something with this now. Now if I click in here, I can move this around and start to nudge it. So I'm hitting the Shift key to nudge it a little bit more. So the problem with this is I didn't have a very nice angle here. So if I was doing this for professional sake, I would go through and make sure that my path was a nice kind of curve along this line. But this time I'll make up for my poor excuse for a path, and I'm going to do another one along this edge. And I'm just going to put the date on this one. I'm going to go ahead and do a pen tool, and I'm going to click here. This time I'm going to start to trace, and I've literally got the banana as my teacher. I never thought I would say that sentence out loud, but it tells me how it needs to be. Cool, so I've got my path here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the text tool, and that'll keep my path kind of the way it is. Now notice what's happening this time. If I click on it, I get my little cursor. So I can type September, oh wait, no, it's October now. October 3rd, 2011. And that goes along with the banana. So let's introduce the next big tool, and that is this selection tool. Now if I click on it, I've got path selection tool or direct selection tool. I want path selection tool. And so notice what happens with my cursor. As I click on the text, I can start to guide it and move it around. Now if I keep going too far, I'm going to lose different characters, so I can pull it back. I also have the ability to flip it to the other side too, which is kind of cool. But I do that simply by going side to side. And notice what icon, the I-beam has that little arrow on the left side or the right side, so I know which side of the path that I'm on. Okay, that's pretty good. So I've got this October 3rd, 2011 sitting on my banana. But what if I don't quite like where it is? I don't want to move my path because that's kind of a pain, but I want to do something with it. So I'm going to go back to my text tool, and I'm going to show you another shortcut. Now before I had shown you, if I click on here, I can use the option button left and right to increase or decrease the amount of space between the characters. That's called kerning. But I can also do that with the baseline. So if I hit everything, I can select it all. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command H. That hides the selection. And now Shift and Command up and down will shift where that text sits as relative to the path. So I can make it go all the way out. And notice how the characters are starting to spread apart just as the path spreads apart. So I can make it go up. Now if I want to make this go in a little bit closer on the other side of the banana, the characters are getting together. So I just want this on the outside. There we are. So I've got that set. Now if I want this path to go away, again, I just simply click on a different layer and the path is going to go away. Sure enough, there's my quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog and October 3rd, 2011, all shaped around a banana. So let's keep going and play with a couple of other things here. I would like to show you something that I have been working on that's relevant to our class. I'm not going to save this. I know, heaven forbid, all this hard work and I'm not saving it. That's okay. So I've got my book started, and I'm pretty proud of where it is. So I'm going to show you what I've done to get to this spot. And these are all of the cool effects that you can do with Photoshop. So let's get into it here. I'm going to go ahead and turn some layers off and take all of these layers. I'm going to shift click on them and drag them both into the little folder, and that groups them. So I'm going to go ahead and call this group original title. Okay, and I can turn those back on and then turn the whole group off. So the way that I got to this image, this is a whole bunch of different things together. I've got the original vector drawing leveled out in a group, and then I've got this image blending with using a pin light mode with the images underneath it, and then I've got this other group here on top of it so that I can have a nice vector mask. So this gradient of this nice pink Darth thing comes in. And now I've got my original title on and off. So that's how I've gotten to this space, to this point. What I'd like to do now is to show you the steps that I took. So first things first, let's talk about the different fonts that I used. I found Star Jedi, the font, on 1001 free fonts. I showed you how to do that last section. So we're going to go ahead and type in, using my pen tool, the first title, which notice what's happened in my layers. It's made an original title. I'm going to pull this, pull this on top of my other layer. Fine, I'll pull this layer down. So with this layer selected, oh phooey, we'll click on it again. Hopefully it'll go. Alright, so I've called this Blackguard. Now one thing that's kind of neat is I want to move this text around a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, instead of like going to the command button and moving around, which works by the way, that works just fine, I can just simply move my cursor outside of the text that I just typed and start to move it. Now this is kind of a neat thing that happens inside Photoshop, because if you notice, I never went to the move tool and I'm not pressing any modifier keys. I'm just outside of that point text and it knows I want to move it around, which I think is neat. Now I want to change the color of this. I'm going to do a nice red color. So I'm going to go to my color picker. Nice super intense red, that's fine. And since that's my foreground color, my text layer is selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Delete. And, oh, there it is. Got a carriage. Now Command Delete. It's actually Option Delete for foreground. I apologize. What was going on there is I didn't get out of my last typing, and so when I hit Command Delete, I flubbed it. So no big deal. Just undo and try again. So I've got Blackguard here. Now that's supposed to be one word, so I'll bring it together. And the other thing that I'm seeing, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we're dealing with just Blackguard. And, oops. Let's make it so it's nice and big. Alright. I'm seeing some weird kerning that's happening. So that's, again, where the letters are close to each other or not. And I want them to be close in some areas, like the B and the L need to be closer. So Option, bring those together a little bit. I've got this weird thing that's happening next to the L and the A, where there's this kind of little divot here. I want to bring that in so the A is right next to it. Zoom out again. The C and the K, that's okay, but this A and C need to come a little bit closer. Good. Again, you can see how kind of detail-oriented you're going to be. And now that you know this, what's going to happen is you're going to start looking at signs a little differently. And they're going to honestly tick you off a little bit. But that's why you go to school, to be snobby. So, alright, we're going to bring this back as well. I like the look that this is getting so far. I want to move this whole thing over, so I'm just going to move my cursor outside here. Alright, so Blackguard is my original text that I've got. That's nice. So the next thing that I want to play with is a couple of blend modes. And so I want this to blend with the background just so you can see how it interacts. This is really just for a test here. So I'm going to drag the whole thing up so you can see a nice difference between the different black and red and white going on in the background. So first things first, I'm inside my text tool. And if I go to my Move tool, just to make sure I'm not affecting anything with this layer selected, my blend modes are up here. And actually, they're separated into 3 different categories. Or, I'm sorry, 5 different categories. We have our pixel category, which is just the normal, good old-fashioned pixels, and I can dissolve that so that it looks like it interacts with the background on a pixel level. I have all of the darken modes, and they're going to essentially make the text darker in different ways. I'm going to show you a shortcut to go through these. Shift plus is going to start going through your different darken modes. Now, the lighten mode essentially takes the pixels and makes them lighter, and so these are a bunch of the different lighten things. Lighten, screen, color dodge, black guard, or linear dodge, lighter color, and overlay. Now, overlay gets us to the contrasting modes. Now, this does some interesting stuff. It's both increasing the darkness and increasing the lightness so that it can boost the contrast. And now all of these are going to show you the different steps here. Soft light. Hard light doesn't do much, actually. And sometimes these blending modes don't do very much, and that's okay. So now we're getting into the next one, which is all of the comparative. And so what this is doing is this is really highlighting the differences by comparing pixels. And in here, we really see the interaction between the black and the white and the text. So let's look at a couple other. Exclusion doesn't change much. Subtraction, and then a divide. Now the last bit deals with a composite, and so this is going to really deal with the luminosity, the color, the saturation. And so let's just look through here and see what that brings up. That's kind of neat, but it's too drab for my taste. So I think normal is good enough, but that is all of the blending modes in a nutshell. So let's start playing with some of this stuff a little bit more. I would like to add my subtitle as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on the text tool. Click in here, and Star Jedi isn't what I want for the subtitle. I want something called Bank Gothic, so I'm going to go ahead and, oops, I did it, didn't I? Escape out of this. I don't want a point tool. With my text tool selected, I hit return, and I can type Bank Gothic. That's good. Oopsie. I want its own thing. So let's go ahead and just type it out. We'll say the exultant story of Anakin Skywalker. Alright? Way too big, totally off the page, no big deal. With this selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Delete, or I'm sorry, Command Return, and then I can hit Return again, and we'll do Bank Gothic. Cool. And we'll hit Tab. Oops. Command Return. Tab, Tab. Now I want this to be maybe 12. I think that'll work. There we are. That's good. So in this case, I do want to set up my actual spacers here, and so we're going to use some guides for this. I'm going to come in real close to the end of the B and grab my ruler. Now if my ruler's not showing up, I can go View, and then I can show rulers. But Command R is a really good, simple command to learn. I'm going to drag this right on in, so it's right at the end of my B. What did it do to? Oh, is this my cursor, or what's happening here? Let's go to my Move tool. Ah, I see. I had guides before, so that's what's going on here. Let's go ahead and clear your guides. Move tool, View, Clear Guides. So we're starting off from scratch here. Text tool, little mistakes here and there, no big deal. No big deal at all. Come right back on in. And delete. Move it over just a little bit. Alright, so I want to make this guide right here. There we are. And I want, give myself a little bit more space. I would like the exultant story of Anakin Skywalker to follow itself right on over here, so we can see that it goes right to the guide. See how it kind of snaps to that guide. That's pretty great. So now I want this to go up right next to this other text. I'm going to hold shift as I drag it up so it sticks along with the guide. Okay, so it's right next to that other text. Now this time what I want to do, I need to be in my move tool so I can nudge it. I want to press the shift button, press down. That jumps 5 pixels. And do it again, another 5, do it again. So at 15, and now I'm at 20 pixels difference. So let's go on over to the end here. So, alright, now I don't have a ruler from this side. I don't need one. I can just drag this ruler in. Okay, so for that guide, we're here. Now what I want to happen is I want the Exultant Story of Anakin Skywalker to be the exact same length as Blackguard, but I also want it to be 20 pixels away from Blackguard. So I'm going to make 2 more guides. This time they're going to be vertical. This way, as I resize it, I'm not messing with the position. Alright, in this case, it's not going to be the best for us to try to puzzle out exactly how big or what size this font needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hold the cursor down, hold the command button down as I'm in the move tool, and I can start to drag it out. I need to zoom in though. I need to be able, need to be able to see everything here. It's Command Z, move it over. Alright, sorry about that little jump. Okay, cool. So we click on this, text tool, click, command, and now I start to drag it. But notice what's happening. I'm not holding the shift button, so it's losing all of its actual font goodness. So I want to press the shift button, and now I can maintain that goodness here. Go right to the edge with the R. Good. So we can see here that I've got this kind of capital letters business. I want all of this to be capital letters. So I'm going to double click on all of it, Command H to hide that, go to my character panel, and I want it to all to be capital, so I can just instantly do that. That's great. But that changes the spacing again, so now I need to come back and bring it down, holding the shift button so I don't lose stuff. Alright, text tool, that's good enough. Go to my move tool, V to do that. With this selected, I can just kind of nudge it up to make sure it's good. Now this is close, but not close enough. I want it to be precise. I want this to be exact. So with the move tool, I'm going to nudge it one more time so I can see that this pixel is right on the guide. We got to do it again. So my text tool, go in there, command. Zoom out just a little bit. What's going on? Ah, got it. So let's zoom back in. It's kind of messy. I know it is. But you'll be having these same kind of difficulties as well. It just jumped away. I don't know what it did, so I hit Command Z there. Let's go ahead and get real close. Go to my text tool one more time. Click on it. Press the command button and drag it out just a little bit while holding the shift button. All that just so that I get that stinking R right at the tip there. And I think that's good enough. Carriage return and Command 0. Looking good. Looking good. I like both of these things together, and I like them at this size. So let's go ahead and turn our view of our guides off. So I don't have to show the guides right now. There's a shortcut for that. That is Command semicolon. And I think that's an important command to know to be able to go back and forth and show your guides. Alright, so now I've got all of this text positioned and sized the way I want in terms of this look. And so what I want to do now is I want to start to play with the actual effects of the text itself. So when I go ahead and click on that text, I want it to be white. I don't necessarily want it to be black or red. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Delete, which is the color of, oh geez, I did it again. Command Delete, which is the color of the background color. And so now I've got some white text there, but I want this to have kind of a glow to it. I want it to look like something happened. Why would it be an exultant story without some sort of redemption? So let's go ahead and play with that. So with my text layer selected, I'm going to come down here to where it says FX, which is effects, and I'm going to choose outer glow. So this is our first experience with the layer style panel. Now I honestly have all of the other options right here inside this panel. So outer glow is the first option. I want the color to be something, let's zoom in here so you can see this a little bit better. Right now I've got a very, very subtle effect. The blend mode is a screen mode, which we want it to glow, so screen is part of those lighten blend modes. We're going to choose the color like a light blue kind of color, like that. And we are going to play with some of these things. Now I can increase or decrease the opacity. I can increase or decrease the noise, which makes it look like it's all kind of crunchy. And now the spread and the size is what you want to think about. Spread is how dense the actual shadow is going to be, and the size is how big it is. And so in this case, we want the size to be, the spread to be pretty good, but I want the size to be really big. So it looks like there's glowing coming behind the text, but all of the text. Alright, so that's pretty cool. And I can choose some other things here. I can have it so I have different kind of glow profiles. I like this one, so it really feels like it's coming off of each one of those words. Experiment with this stuff. Play around. See what you can see. You can't really hurt it. So I like this one the best, and I didn't know that going into this. I like that better than anything else. And we do want to make this anti-aliased. If we shrink it down, we want it to keep it there. Now my jitter allows me to change the quality of that kind of edge, so each one would be a little bit different. In this case, we're not really seeing a bunch of change there, so we'll just hit OK. And now I've got my character style for the exultant story of Anakin Skywalker. Has a nice big thing there. I'll be honest with you, that's a little big as I come out. So we can play with that by double-clicking on outer glow and just bringing it down. And I want the opacity to be turned down just a little bit. There we are. That's getting there a little better. Something like that. Good. So what if I wanted to knock out all of these letters? Well, that's part of the layers panel too. We can change the opacity of all of it by going up and down, but notice that changes the background as well. But if I want to change the fill and leave the actual effect alone, that's what fill is. So as I scrub down, I get rid of the letters, but the fill stays there. And so that's an effect that some people go for. It's like that opposite spray paint stencil effect. In this case, it's fine. I just wanted to show you that you had that ability. So I'll come all the way back up with that scrubber. Cool. So one down. Now the next one, we're going to do a whole bunch of different stuff to it. So if you remember, I had an outline, I had some texture in there, and I had a gradient on it. So there's all sorts of different things that we do to this blackguard. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start with a stroke. With this selected, we click on Effects, and we'll go Stroke. Now I have some options for my stroke. I want it to be a white stroke. Actually, let's use that same color that we had before for that. Why not? It's like nice light blue. We do have the ability to position it outside, inside, or center. What's center look like? So it's right in between everything. I like the idea of it being outside. That's kind of cooler, to me anyway. I do have a blend mode, so I can lighten it if I wanted to. We have a screen going on for the other one, so that the stroke itself interacts. And I can also increase the size if I wanted to. So that looks kind of ridiculous. 3 points is a pretty good one for this. All right. So let's hit OK here, and let's keep going. We've got one effect down, let's go to another one. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a pattern overlay. Now when I go to my pattern overlay, you will see a little something different here. So I'm going to go, the default patterns don't give you much to choose from. Choose a large, sorry about this. Alright, so we want to do, you want to choose a large list, and you also want to use maybe a different kind of surface. So we can do colored paper, and it'll say, do I want to append it or do I want to replace it? I wanted to replace it. It's asking me to save. Give me a second here. Cancel this out. I didn't want to save it. But now I have all these different kind of colored papers to choose from. I don't really want to choose any of those. I'm going to go back to my large thumbnail. I can drag this out, make it a little bit bigger, so I have some choices here. Let's append to the list. Let's do artist surfaces. OK, and it replaces it. This time I want this kind of weird look here. So if I click outside of this, I can also scale it. Now notice what happens as I start to scale it. Gets it a little, obviously it scales it. And I hit OK here. And so now I've got this text scaled. But I want it to interact a little bit differently. Right now it's just replaced it completely with a pattern. And I had red text before. So I come back here to pattern overlay. And instead of the blend mode being normal, I want to darken it. So now I've got that kind of cool look. We can keep playing with this. What about a dodge color, multiply? There we are, that's kind of cool. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, cool. So we've got that. The next thing I want to do is I want to add that gradient layer. Okay, and so for this one, nice and dark gradient overlay. And I can reverse it if I wanted to. I don't. I like it like this. And I can scale it so it makes it a little bit smaller or bigger depending on how I want the gradient to go. I like it like this, but again, I also want to play with this idea of an overlay. So it does a different effect in there, and you can kind of play around with this. We want to keep the color red, so that's important for this. Find a color that works for you. It's doing some weird stuff with all these other blending modes on top of each other. There it is. So linear burn is what I like. Alright, so I've got Blackguard, the exultant story of Anakin Skywalker. What I would like to do, one last thing, I think it would look cool if I just moved this whole business. So I'm going to select both of them. So shift clicking on both. Let's move that down. I'm going to go to Command 0 so I can see my whole image. And now I'm going to use my move tool, but I'm going to hit Command T. Now because both are selected, I can actually affect both at the same time. I'm holding the shift button here so that I've got this ability. And notice the interaction with the background because of that layer, if it's changing. So I'm just going to drag it right here and make the whole thing bigger. So there we are. I don't like the vertical. I want it to continue to be horizontal with the text. So what I want to do is come back to my gradient overlay, double click on it, and just change it so that it's at an angle with the text. So I say 0 again. Booyah. We're back. We're good. But notice what's happened. I just scaled that text, and it's totally fine in terms of resolution. I don't have to worry about whether it's freaking out or going to pixelate or anything like that. Photoshop is one of the best programs for resolution-dependent text that you can get out there. Whew, we just covered a lot. Here was look 1. I'm going to go ahead and make a snapshot of it. This is what we just created. And now if I turn these layers off and turn this layer on, it's a little bit different, but I kind of like what I just did more. but I do like the size of this one. So make a snapshot. Camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2. So there's things about both that I like, but now we have the ability to go back through and see which one we like and kind of push and play and prod and pull, and we're done. So thank you so much for your time, and we will see you next time.